everybody, Matt the Bat here. So yesterday, I found this out yesterday, was the 20th anniversary of Minority Report. Yes, this was the first collaboration between Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise. Also, Colin Farrell was in that movie. The late Max von Sydow was in that movie. Samantha Norton was in that movie. This is by far my favorite Tom Cruise movie. This is also my third favorite Steven Spielberg movie, just behind Jaws and Jurassic Park. I saw this movie in the movie theater, of course, in the summer of 2002. I was just out of my first year of middle school, so I was a young boy. I was a youngling, and I went and saw this movie. What I love about this movie is, number one, that's a great performance by Tom Cruise. Action-packed. I love the cinematography by, Emmanuel Jaminski. I think that's right. Or Jaminski. The cinematography and the lighting and very futuristic look to it. He already had worked with him on AI the year before, that artificial intelligence movie. And between artificial intelligence, Minority Report, and then War of the Worlds, the Steven Spielberg one, it's like its own little sci-fi futuristic trilogy, because all three movies have the same lighting and cinematography, and those are the only movies that have that. So I call those movies like the Steven Spielberg futuristic sci-fi trilogy. I love this movie. I love the actual implications of this movie. It makes you really, think about it. It makes you wonder. I mean, it's a great debate between people. And for those of you who don't know, this is in the year 2054. They have precogs that can predict a murder before it happens. And what happens is, once they predict the murder, the detectives, the FBI people, which is Tom Cruise is one of those people, goes and has to stop the murder from happening before it happens. And then we find out by the second act, by the end of the first act, one of the precogs has a premonition, and this time it involves Tom Cruise's character, that he's going to end up killing someone in 2 days, and he has no idea who this person is, so he's on the run. And it's just an interesting story, because here you have this guy who believes in this system, that it works, it's definite, there's no error, and then by the end of the first act, you realize the guy's like, oh no, I'm supposed to murder somebody, and I have no idea who this guy is. And so now his mentality of the system might be broken, because he's like, why did this happen to me? Why? And he's trying to get answers, and Colin Farrell is the police detective trying to shut this organization down. Max von Sydow is this older guy who started this whole precog system. While this is going on, you also got this other one of Samantha Norton and Agatha keeps having visions of this other murder, and nobody knows if this is now or this is in the past. There's a lot in this movie. Not to mention, you find out that, Tom Cruise's character, John Anderson, has tragedy. He's divorced from his wife, because one day years ago, he was at the pool with his young son, and they were swimming, and he went underwater to hold his breath, to see how long he could hold his breath for. And when he came up out of the water, his son was gone, missing, and they still haven't been able to find him all these years later. They don't know if he's dead, they don't know if he's still alive. Basically, a parent's worst nightmare. I mean, it's worse than knowing that your child is dead. I mean, when he's dead, he's dead. But if you don't know if your child is still alive when he's been kidnapped, and you never had that resolution, it's a very dark story. There's a lot of great cinematography, like I said. There's a sequence of Tom Cruise in this apartment complex, getting his eye redone, and these little, like, robotic spiders go into this apartment complex to try and find him. And the way it's shot is like all one shot, but you see every room in the apartment as these spiders go through it. And the way Spielberg shoots it, it's really, really excellent. But mainly the main thing is with this movie that gives people where they have that debate of, well, how do they know the pre-cops? Well, how do the pre-cops know that the person that's going to commit the murder decides last minute not to do it? They have a moment of, wait a minute, what am I doing? And that's like a debate throughout the movie, like, well, and that's that's the Colin Farrell's argument, like, well, what if they're wrong? And, Tom Cruise and everyone like, oh, they're never wrong. And, it's a very interesting debate, and like, well, what if they are? You're sending someone to prison for life that actually doesn't actually end up committing the murder. So, and then like I said later on, there's a little bit of a spoiler. John Anderson does find the guy that he's supposed to murder. He kills him. He goes into jail. And a lot of people wanted that to be the end of the, like, have the mother, have the ex-wife solve the other problem with Max Montino, and have Tom Cruise be the one in jail by the end of the movie. And have this like open-ended, is he going to get out, is he not going to get out? But they did it. That was okay. But it was a great movie. It's a very dark movie. I think this is his darkest movie besides Schindler's List. Great performance. The only negative I have with this movie is the very, 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 literally the very end of the movie. The last shot of the movie. And this is a Spielberg thing that he's been doing now for a long, long time. That he always has to have a happy ending at the end of his movies. Like, we had this very dark movie, but now we gotta have a happy ending at the end of it, He gets back with his ex-wife, and she's pregnant, so it's kind of like, we're starting over, no, we never found our other son, but we're gonna start our family over, we're gonna have a baby, we're back together. And I always thought that was a little bit of a too happy of an ending for such a movie that was so dark. I would have liked a little bit of something a little bit in the middle, like, okay, he never found his kid, but maybe at least the wife and him did get back together. Or maybe he found some resolution some other way. But yeah, overall, though, this is a great movie. 20 years now, and I can't believe that. If you have not seen this movie, I highly recommend it. And I kind of wish that Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise did end up working together again. Apparently when they were working on War of the Worlds, that also had Dakota Fanning in it. That was when the whole jumping on the couch Oprah Winfrey incident was going on. Katie Holmes, apparently on set, Tom Cruise was talking all Scientology, and Spielberg wasn't having it, and that kind of separated them. But I would love to see Tom Cruise and Spielberg do a third sci-fi related movie to close out the Spielberg-Tom Cruise sci-fi trilogy. But overall, like I said, great movie. Still one of my favorites in the Spielberg filmography. One of my favorite Tom Cruise performances. And yeah, if you haven't seen it, go watch it.